Okay, this is an overall view of the digestive system, which I'll run down. Here is your oral cavity. Here is your tongue, the cavity itself, going down the esophagus, which is this back tunnel here, goes into the stomach, then into the small intestines, the duodenum, the ileum, and jejunum, which we'll talk about in a second, then the rectum and anus. And then we have accessory digestive organs, which will be the liver and pancreas, which add enzymes. So let's look just briefly into the actual oral cavity. So you have your hard palate here, that white. You have your soft palate here, your uvula, that grape-looking tissue. It's made up of soft tissue and it comes at the very end. It's actually there for protection. It'll sense if you're swallowing something too big or too dangerous for you to take care of. Obviously, that's where your teeth is going to be. That's where your tongue. You've got your pharynx, okay? So the pharynx is this back area right here. Here's your nasal, your oral, and your larynx. Well, there's specific regions that are named specifically for location. So where your nasal cavity and your pharynx meet, this area right here is called the nasopharynx. This is your oral cavity, this is the pharynx, this is your oral pharynx. And here is where your larynx is, your vocal cords. This area right here where the two meet is your laryngeal pharynx. Okay. Now let's move into, sorry, this is going to be a very rough image, but it's going to work, this video. So let's move into the teeth itself, and we'll just start with the naming. So here's a model of the naming. They're pretty much named for not only location, but what they break down, what foods you ingest. And whatever you are dominant at eating is going to be reflective of the teeth. They're bigger, they're stronger. So just for instance, these are your incisors here, your front teeth. Think about a squirrel or a rabbit which digest specific foods. Those are larger in the center here. Then the next set of teeth on either side are going to be your canines. Think about a dog, a wolf, a cat. They need to tear and grab into food. Then you have your first set of molars, and lastly your wisdom teeth. Wisdom teeth are not necessary, not everyone gets them, not everyone gets all four. It varies from person to person. No one is better or the other as far as if you have them or not. So let's go into the next one. So now we're actually going into the tooth itself and the individual structures represented by the tooth. So let's start with this bump right here is called the cusp. This whole white covering, which you see on TV when they talk about toothpaste, this is going to be made up of enamel, which is porous. This whole area that is above the gum line this whole area is going to be the crown. Okay. This is dentin, this represented by light green. The center here, represented by the beige, is going to be the pulp. That's where all the blood vessels and nerve endings are. This area from here, from the gum line down, is going to be your root. Again, enamel. This whole area here is going to be the crown. Dentin, lime green colored here. Pulp, all this beige where the blood vessels and nerve endings. And this area down is going to be your root. Okay? Again, I'm going to take pictures of all of these and have it uploaded for you so you can easily access them as well. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, So now we're on to the stomach, and the model here we have is the stomach. Okay, you can see it has that characteristic J shape. Okay, so on the outside of the stomach, you can see that there's two curvatures, one here and one here. One side is bigger than the other as I hold it up. So this right here is going to be the lesser curvature. This right here, since it's bigger, is going to be the greater curvature. This, see how the shape is? It's kind of rounded at the top. That area is called the fundus. Then the remaining area, really what is going to fill up with material, food material, is going to be the body of the stomach. Now if I open it up, these folding, these ripples you can see, which I talk about in lecture, that is called rugae, that rippling structure. Okay? Okay? This is what's going to go into the small intestines. That is going to begin the duodenum at both areas. So at both locations, you have to have a way to close it, to kind of seal it off so things don't go from the stomach back up to the oral cavity, up the esophagus, you know, that burns. And it has to be a way to seal so everything's processed in here rather than just go immediately into the small intestine. So always at openings on any organ, you're going to have something called a sphincter. So where the esophagus is going into it, it is going to be the esophageal sphincter. Okay? Where it is going into the small intestine, that's going to be the pyloric sphincter, which will be at the end. Okay? And again, these are model images. Your lab TA is going to have more images for you to have to look at as well. They'll be labeled on it, but I thought it was necessary that you actually can see what the models itself look like. Okay? We're back at that oral cavity, and the only thing I want to point out on this, again, it's a different thing, it's different areas to actually look, but I thought it was important to actually pull out your glands so you can actually see your glands. So this right here, okay, that's under your tongue, so it is your sublingual, beneath, sublingual gland. If I turn it over, see this one right here? This is under your lower jawbone, your mandible. So this is submandibular gland. Okay? So let's move on to the next thing. Again, I'm leaving these a little bit longer so you can actually look at them and have a chance to take notes as well. Again, you can still see hard palate, soft palate. The tip would be the uvula. This is your nasal pharynx. This is your oral pharynx. And this is your laryngeal pharynx. And you can see this one, dentition is going to be teeth. Think of dentist, dentition, okay? Now let's move into the liver itself. So there's two lobes to the liver. Remember, switch hands. So normally you would think this would be right and left, and it's opposite. So this larger lobe is going to be the right lobe. This smaller lobe is going to be the left lobe. Remember, switch hands. This right here, which I'll talk about in lecture, is called the falciform ligament. Okay, so if we turn it upside down so you can see it, all right, the green structure at the top, that's going to be your gallbladder. Then you got, this is going to be your inferior vena cava, okay? Remember we talked about that in 250. So this is the inferior vena cava. And then we're talking about the portal triads, which is this area right here. So these first two are going to be ducts, and I have another image that'll help you out. So you've got your portal, your ducts. So duct, vein, artery. That's your triad. Duct, represented in green. See, it's coming out of the gallbladder. That is going to be your hepatic portal vein, and the red one is going to be your hepatic portal artery. Okay? Again, I'm going to move over to this one as well, so you can see this as well. Look at it. Okay? Again, you can see the lobes of the liver. You can now see the gallbladder again, and the hepatic duct, and the hepatic portal vein, and then the red represents the hepatic portal artery. This structure right here, I always describe it as corn on the cob. That is going to be your pancreas. And then here is where it moves. It sends all the enzymes where it's going to go into your duodenum, which is the beginning of your small intestine. Okay? Again, I'm trying to give you time to actually look and identify structures as well. All right, so let's move into the last bit, which is going to be your intestines. Again, this is the George model that we always refer to. Okay, the small intestines are going to be surrounded by the large intestines. So with the small intestines, remember what is directly attached to the stomach, which is going to be up here. That first part of the small intestines is the duodenum. The middle or largest portion of the small intestines is going to be jejunum. And the portion of the small intestine that attaches or goes to the large intestine is going to be the ileum. So duodenum beginning, jejunum middle, and ileum, think about iliac crest. Ileum is the bottom portion of the small intestines. I'm going to remove this so you can actually see the large intestines and go through it. This structure right here is the appendix. This area right next to the appendix is called the cecum. This area right here, so the food, digested material is going to enter the large intestine at the cecum. It's going to go up the ascending colon. Put this back. It's going to come across the transverse colon. Transverse cut, remember, is side to side. And then it's going to go down the descending colon to the rectum, which is this area here, and finally the anus for removal. Okay? There's one other portion. Notice how I gave you the specific area here, cecum, where it's going to enter from the small intestine. Well, just before it actually goes into the rectum, that area here is called the sigmoid colon. Again, cecum, appendix, cecum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, this very specific region here, rectum, and anus. Okay. Again, I'm going to send images as well out through your TAs for each of the labs, and this is how it's going to be run, so you have a general gist of what to expect.